Hello and thanks for joining the Thursday edition of Journalist Hangout. I am Veronica Dani Boy. It is 50 days to the conduct of the 2019 general elections in Nigeria. Always keep a date with us to help you make sense of events shaping the polity. Today on the program, Obasanjo tackles Amosun on next Ogun governor, tells him to allow the will of God prevail. INEC says that security will determine conduct of 2019 elections in the Northeast, and later on the show, police arrest alleged killers of ex-defense chief Alex Bade. I will be hanging out with Mobolade Omonijo, Ayo Makinde, and Chris Kende. Gentlemen, thanks for coming on the program.
Thank you for having us.
Well, Journalist Hangout starts now. Living true to his background as a former military leader, former Nigeria's President Chief Olusegun Obasanjo is a man that never shies away from a fight. Having taken on the ruling All Progressives Congress APC by refusing to back the candidature of President Muhammadu Buhari for 2019 presidential election, he's now tackling the governor of his home state, Ibikunle Amosun, over his successor. Speaking at an event attended by both men, Obasanjo said, though he agreed with Amosun that power should shift to Ogun West Senatorial District, it does not align with him on who becomes the next governor. The former president is backing the candidate of African Democratic Congress, ADC, Gwega Isiaka, while Amosun is rooting for Abdulkadir Akinlade of the Allied People's Movement, APM, to become next governor of the state. Now, the vintage Obasanjo tells Amosun to allow the will of God prevail in the matter. Now it seems the die is cast. Chris, I would start with you. Some would say that we run a democracy, so to speak, and not a theocracy, if there's anything like that. So saying that Obasanjo, the former president, saying that we should allow the will of God, what exactly is he, or what does he imply?
Well, it's a very straightforward.
Maybe God should carry a ballot paper.
Basically, just as the intro said, the former president is not somebody that shy away from controversies. When it comes to Ogun politics, you know, politics is local. Okay, that is why even after being president, he decided also to move to the local politics in his own area in Ogun State. And since 1999, there have been various political parties that have produced the governors of Ogun State, and that's a fact. And what is more intriguing now is the fact that both himself and Amosun have agreed that power must shift.
To the west?
Yes, to the west. The west have not produced the governorship of that state for over 40 years. Okay, so, and that is what Obasanjo has been saying now. Ordinarily, Baba said he doesn't belong to any political party any longer. But I know that he has some kind of sympathy initially for the candidates of the PDP. The initial, not, you know, PDP has several candidates, but the initial, they put to a guy of a person. And it was so obvious because either the cousin or the father of that particular candidate is a very bosom friend of his. Chief Kesinti Babajebu. Now, when then with the issue, probably would have also aligned with other political parties, but with the problem the APC Amosun is having with his political party and the rest of them, now it seems that Amosun also came out to say that, yes, I will support the president for presidency, but when it comes to the governorship in the state, he will not support his political party. So that statement in itself was loaded with meaning, which is why the former president now said, okay, you have your candidates. I would rather prefer GNI to be the governor. You prefer your own man. Now, let us just allow Ogun State people to elect who that. Let nobody try to manipulate the system. And that is what he was just saying that. So good enough, both of them had a meeting ground, which they both have agreed that they will allow peace to reign. And he went further to ask the two major candidates, both his own, the man he's backing, and the one that Amosun is backing, two of them to embrace themselves and practically raise a cause or whatever. If any one of you causes any trouble, then the cause will be on you. So I think it was a good one, and the former president is well respected in Ogun State, and I believe that Governor Amosu will also stick to whatever has been agreed, and let's see how it pans out.
Okay, that is left to be seen, but yes. Do you think that the governor will heed this call of allowing God take control, or let's say letting go and letting God?
Well, in the first instance, when you deal with Chief Olusegun Obasanjo, you may have to dwell more on what he does not say than what he says. You have to read between the lines to actually understand him. Now, what he said about allowing God to be the decider could mean either of two things. It could be that I support Nasir Gwega, Nasir Isiaka, GNI. You support Akinlade, but you know that God's choice is my own choice. so don't disrupt anything. It could be that. Then it could also be what he said, let peace reign. Whoever comes up, let's embrace. And beyond the two of them, they're not the only two candidates.
Of course. They're
not even the only two prominent candidates, if you want to add that. Because you cannot discountenance the APC in the equation. Dakwa Abiodun is not from Ogun West, he's from Ogun East. He's a Remo man. But he is the candidate of the ruling party, which is in tatters, I agree. But you cannot discountenance what he stands for, what backs him up, because he has the backing of the party, and therefore, a number of things could come into that. No? Then, of course, you could also say the PDP. You cannot discountenance the PDP too, yes, because that produced the governor of that state, and it's a major and formidable political party in the country and in the state. So you could say it's a four-cornered fight, so to say. So if you say, let God decide, let's hope that what Chief Obasanjo means is that let God decide among all these, let it be the will of the people, the voice of the people is the voice of God. And so once the people speak, let everybody back the person. Let's hope that's what it is. If that's what it means, then all well and good. That's what democracy is about. The voters, they are the kings. They go, they vote. Let's hope that's what it means. If that is what it means, all well and good for everybody.
Well, a statement emerging is that perhaps because there's been a purported endorsement of Adekunle Akinlade, that's the candidate that the governor supports, which was eventually rejected by 10 political parties by the Intra-Party Advisory Council. Perhaps this could be the reason why he's saying, you know, just allow God. There's no need pushing too far. See,
I'll ape Omobolade here. There is a very fundamental thing that we generally, even as media men, always, well, most of the time we leave out, which is the people. Peter Drucker is father of management. Said the most important thing in communication is hearing what isn't said. And to a large extent, what are these two gentlemen saying? Ultimately, it's to the ballot box, right? Former president is a juggernaut in politics in Nigeria. The incumbent governor is definitely a force to reckon with in Ogun State at the moment. The ruling party is a vested interest, and there is a former governor who is also on the side of the ruling party in the state. So who exactly are the people contending for anything here? Are the interests at play in the interest of the people? What isn't being said here is the interest of the people. That's the way I see this so far. So unfortunately, I don't know how much people know about GNI, about Akinlade, about Dakwa Abiodun, which is where the responsibility of choosing the next governor really shouldn't depend on the political party, but on the interests of the people. How interested are the people in choosing someone of their own? How many people are really, really interested in the politics of their state at this point? So I'm confused on behalf of the Nigerian, because most of the time we only go with the headlines. We don't go with
Go in depth.
the real issues. Yes. There have been a governor in this same Ogun State who used what I call the Absalom formula. Bought the people's minds over a number of years. Bought the minds of the people over a number of years. Came out and he dipped his feet and his hands in the grassroots. So when it was time to vote, it was automatic. How deep are these other guys in the grassroots? Even if you are making up, even if you are, it's just for doing sake, even if it's just to get into office, how much of the political power that the governor is asking for is really in the interest of the people? How much of the political power that the former president is talking about is in the interest of the people? How much of the dynamics of the ruling APC, how much of those interests are in the interest of the people? Those are the questions that the people should be asking now. And I pray and hope that people can factor in all those indices, because these things that I'm talking about, you won't find them in the news. But these are the core issues that the people themselves should be talking about. Infrastructural development is perceived as he's doing something. How closely, how personally are the lives of the people touched? The thing that will touch the lives of the people of an Ogun State, for instance, in my opinion, would be rural infrastructure. Because the people who are making Gary are not they're not downtown. They're in the hinterlands. How well represented are the interests of these people? So which governor is going to take the interest of the people in the grassroots, in the riverine area, to heart, campaign with those things? Because if you do not develop those areas, how in the world are you going to tell me that the people's lives will be personally touched? That's the way I'm looking at this whole drama for me, it's always about the people first. If you do not factor in the people, as far as I'm concerned, it's all politics and power play.
Chris, you want to react to this?
Yes, in all this, I already mentioned about past governors, but another thing we should take into cognizance is the fact that even the PDP is a very, very big stakeholder in this.
Yes.
If you look at Buruji Kashamu,
yeah.
Now,
whose deputy is Ruben Abati?
That is, most people have forgotten the fact that the Director General of the PDP presidential candidate, Daniel is
powerful
governor
broker
of Ogun State, and is a very big stakeholder in the state. Okay, so
very
it's not just
grassroots,
very deep.
I mentioned that.
Yes, that's also. Yes, so PDP. So it's going to be, Ogun State has always been referred most often than not as at times the political headquarters of Nigeria to a large extent. If you realize, in the past, since 1960, that state, you can check out the number of head of states that particular state has produced. We are talking of the apart from there's Obasanjo, there's Shonekon, even the MKO is from Ogun State. So this is a state. It is well enlightened when it comes politically. In fact, in the whole of the Southwest, I would say that when it comes to politics, it's the foremost. So 2019, the only problem, the only issue there is that if the PDP had, the APC had allowed Amosu to have his way, the way he was going, probably it would have been an Eldorado for them. Okay, that if he had allowed him to present his candidate, if it wasn't, his candidate was not nullified by the powers that be in Abuja and the rest of them, because that is why. Now, the intrigue here is that now Amosu, about a few days ago, went back to Aso Rock to present to explore the transfer window. His party, the so-called party he's representing, APM, did not only say they are endorsing President Buhari, he went with the chairman of the party to say, sir, we are going to endorse you for presidency, but for that governorship, please, you allow me to have my way. And then, so, it's a bit, so, but let's see how the way it pans out. Let's see the way it pans out.
Yeah, in looking at how the way it pans out, that brings me to my next question. He's saying he took the candidate of the APM to the president. We can see the way that this same governor expressed his displeasure when the primaries did not go his way, at the APC primaries, and how he's trying to ensure that his candidates, emerges as the governor. And so do you think that he will let things slide just like that? No,
he can't let. I mean, he has declared his interest. He has interest in this, which is why he's saying, look, APC, you are on your own as far as the governorship race in Ogun State is concerned. I'm not with you on this. So he's not going to leave things lying. He knows that once his candidate loses, he is the loser. I mean, he knows that. But unfortunately, maybe that's what Chief Obasanjo is hinting at in saying, let the will of God prevail. Maybe because he's pushing very hard for his candidate and he's saying that anything that stands on my way must give way. I mean, but of course, in doing that, he's been a very good lieutenant of the former president himself. The former president, the former president never allowed even party or anything. When it's Imo State, he will say, this is going to be your governor. And when the people said, no, he said, okay, go and vote on another party platform. Go for the DPA or is it PPA? Then, I mean, so he did that in a number of places. He was a man known for his impunity. He never allowed its Obasanjo's interest must prevail.
So what's the moral grounds for making this kind of statement?
There's no moral ground. In Nigerian politics, there's nothing like morality, unfortunately. There's no moral ground. That's why I said we should watch out for more of what he did not say than what he said. That maybe what he is also hinting at is, look, that's your interest. It's not going to get anywhere. Better watch out. The will of God is my own candidate. Come and queue behind us. More likely. Obasanjo is not a person that will just say, okay, let God have his way, let it go the way the people want, let all of us. He's not a man like that. At least in antecedents, don't support that. He's always dictated. Even when the came to presidency, he chose Yar'Adua and said, this man is going to succeed me. Yar'Adua never...
In
the democracy. There were other people who had wanted to contest. He told them, look, this is going to be the candidate of the PDP. And that was it. And they went also for the deputy governor of Bayelsa State, Goodluck Jonathan, to be his running mate. It was just handpicking. Even when that also went, he was the one also who insisted that Goodluck Jonathan must be the next presidential candidate of the party. He never hid where he stood. And he felt that anybody who has a contrary opinion is either a fool or does not know what he's doing.
Or he's an enemy.
Or he's an enemy.
Okay, okay, you want to say something before I ask my question?
I go back. You can ask yourself, but I go back to, in all of these things, gentlemen. Yes. It's the people that listen to radio. It's the people that watch TV.
How enlightened are the people to understand all of these things?
Thank you for that question, but I will answer this question with a question as a typical question. How much do we do as journalists to enlighten the people?
That is why you're here.
Good. Most of the time, and unfortunately so, the people are only interested in the headlines. Come on, there is so much to read. You read Twitter, read Facebook, read Instagram, you come and read Punch, Guardian, then you watch TVC News, watch this one, listen to radio and all of that. There is a lot of information overload. So the problem they have is sifting. Back in time when you had just Daily Times, Evening Times, Lagos Weekend, Sunday Times, Saturday Times, they had little choice. They had very, very few choices. It was either Daily Times or no other times. TV was just one. Radio was just one. They could just stick with either or all, and they will get all the information. But now, you have so much to sift through. So the battle now is, which one is telling me what I need to hear? They are not looking for what they need to hear. What are they looking for? What they want to hear. Unfortunately, because primarily we want to make money. Primarily we were looking for the eyeballs, the eardrums, and the patronage, for whatever reasons that come to us, we give them the headline or the pointers or the whatever that will get them to read or to patronize us. We have a responsibility, but please, I really won't blame the media, because how much is diesel? How much are the things that my friend here has to use to run his online, all of his online platforms? So all those things have come to play. But ultimately, these people themselves have a responsibility. What's this responsibility? Look beyond the headlines. Let the people look beyond the headlines. It's either, and unfortunately, we all know, 5 W's and the H. Those are the things that are supposed to make the headline. Unfortunately, which one do we go for the most? The who. We forget the where, when, why, how, and those other things. We don't go for those ones. People are interested in who, the newsmaker. And most of the time, those are the people that we also project. But what if we project the why? What if we project the other elements of the news? These people are not going to look for it. It's sad. And I'm hoping, I'm praying that the electorate in 2019 will not allow themselves to be slaves of only what they hear and go for what they need, because ultimately that is what will determine their own lives, whether it will be better or it will be worse.
Well, one other thing that was spoken about in all of this was the issue of violence, avoiding violence, and looking at the antecedent, like he mentioned, of the former president, and we now have a governor who is saying, I'm pushing my person. How can they avoid violence in all of this?
I'll give it to them. I'll give it to Ogun State. If you look back even through 1979, when I was still a secondary school, primary, secondary class 1 student, to present situation, Ogun State has never been noted for violence when it comes to politics. We know those states in the southwest.
But we know the stakes are high.
Yes, even when the stakes are high. We know the states, there are states you mentioned in southwest. And I'll say, don't forget in those days, my big Egun here will remember that was, I think in 79, where some people were just throwing ordinary, it was the egg, 83, with egg, we just throw an egg at your building and it just go on fire and rest of it.
We just hold the thought.
Okay.
We have Tijani on the line calling from Osun State. Go ahead with your contribution. Welcome to the program.
Hello. Good evening, how are you?
Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to you advance.
Same to you.
Thank you.
Concerning Ogun politics, I think Obasanjo has made the final that we should leave the two of them, either Obasanjo or the Amosu. I know the will of God will prevail in the state. God bless you.
Thank you. Yes,
All right, go ahead.
yeah, so the only thing, as they rightly said, the stake is very, very high.
Yes.
APC has a stake. Amosu wants somebody that can continue with his quote-unquote legacy. And don't forget that if he misses it, a lot is at stake. Yes, it always happens. When another person comes in, there's a tendency to look into the books, look at some of the things that you have done wrong, some of the contracts that you awarded that have not been completed. There will be people that collected money and disappear with it and the rest of it. A new regime will come up. And so most often than not, the stake is very, very high for him. Then apart from that, there always he wants to be relevant, which is why you see that most of his supporters and also his various commissioners and the rest of them, practically all of them have moved. Amosu is the only one that has not moved to APM. He is still, yes, till tomorrow, Amosu still stamp himself as thinking that he is a member of APC. And that in itself brings a lot of problems. You understand what I'm saying? So he was already having issues. The whole idea is just like, the whole idea is to destabilize the party. Okay.
Which of the
APC, of course. Now
well,
you have to.
I hear just now that he has already started his senatorial campaigns
for AP, under APC or
under
APM.
APC.
That's what I'm telling you. That's what I'm telling you. So he definitely, it's just like what Rochas is doing in Imo State. Rochas is going to contest for his senatorial seat under APC. But his son-in-law is going to contest for governorship under PPA. So it's strategic on their part. So I think what we're having now is the problem of a bull in a China glass shop. You just have to be very careful, has to be able to take away the bull out of the shop, or else everything goes. And that is what I'm expecting that, but that won't happen, and I believe that it will be, but at the end of it all, it is going to be between Amosu's candidate, that of the APC, and probably Obasanjo's. I don't know whether PDP will be able to have any impact.
Really? With all that, all the things that you have talked about?
My brother, I
PDP has its own problem.
PDP is widely divided in the Ogun State.
So
Highly
what's
divided.
the difference at this point now?
Yes.
Because the challenge that we are having
Yes.
with the APC now
Yes.
is the same thing that's been on with the PDP for
Yes.
how many years now?
Yes,
And that
exactly.
one continues even until now.
Yeah.
Okay. Now you talked about Amosu, playing some games, standing here. So we've seen that at the Senate.
Yes, yes,
With
yes.
Bukola Saraki staying, all his
Yeah,
echelons,
exactly.
all his donkeys went, and then
Not during the
election.
There's a difference.
Not
during election.
Saraki did not stay in PDP while campaigning for
Another
APC
party.
for some other things.
is the
that
election
because-
here?
The election is
Election is
there.
there.
It's just less than
It's
2
just
months.
Election
Wait,
time
wait.
is on.
It's
Ayo,
about
election
15
is there.
The last time that we
15
were
days.
having this conversation, I don't know if you remember, they were saying that there was something could happen between Ambode and the other. And I told you, this
Anyway.
is too late.
Election is here. It's just
Anyway,
50
gentlemen,
days.
we need to quickly wrap up this topic. Mobalade,
days.
your final thoughts on this. How do you see this playing out? Because violence must be avoided as
No,
much as
at
possible.
all costs, violence must be avoided. And a whole lot depends on the people. I hope they learn their lessons. Because at the end of the day, the people who will bear the brunt are the people. They are the children of the so-called ordinary men.
Yeah.
The children of Akinlade or Obasanjo or Amosun or GNI or Dapo Abiodun will not be cannon foders. It is the children of the market woman and co that will be used for such things. So the people should realize that. Then there's one thing I just want to say: Nigerian politicians have not learned their lessons. They go out to be the godfather. They push somebody in, thinking they will be able to control him. We've seen it in all. It does not work.
It's true.
In
It's
most
true.
places, it fails.
It is. Yeah.
So why are
It
they
is.
deceiving themselves?
It is.
Was it with Unaman in Enugu State? Or where?
Even the president in Akwa Ibom is happening.
Yes.
It is.
Well, I think he took the words right out of my mouth. I don't think I should say anymore. And I have always believed, when we're talking about fears of violence in the elections, the only place I have fears are Port Harcourt and Northeast. Ogun State, Southwest, we love peace too much. I don't see any, I don't see,
You think so?
Same here.
I don't see it.
All right. When we return, INEC says security will determine conduct of 2019 elections in the Northeast. Stay with us. All right, we are going into the new year and all eyes are beaming on the 2019 elections kicking off in February. The Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, has at different fora expressed its readiness to conduct elections in all parts of the country. But the security situation in some parts like the Northeast remains a thorny issue. INEC National Commissioner in charge of publicity and voter education, Festus Okoye, told newsmen that the conduct of the election in insecurity-prone areas will be determined by security reports from the military. So, conduct of next year's election in troubled spots is as dependent on the military as is winning the war against insurgency. There's been renewed attacks on military bases in the Northeast, raising anxiety about the possibility of having elections in these areas. What do you envisage?
Yes, so much. Fortunately, I just came back from the Northeast.
Oh, really?
Yes, last weekend I was in Bendugri, where I was one of the editors that were invited to Maiduguri by the Chief of Army Staff, General Buratai, for a chit chat. And that also gave me, that was last weekend, and that gave me an opportunity. In fact, that was my first time of going to the Northeast. What I saw on ground, and from what I heard, we have serious problem in the North. We still have serious problem in the Northeast. The Chief of Army Staff said so himself. And we are having more challenges. The insurgency is growing on a daily basis. The number of our troops that are being killed on a daily basis is rising. And they are doing, even within Maiduguri itself. In fact, at a point, one of our colleagues suggested that we should be embedded. We should be embedded into the military and probably move out of Maiduguri, go to the war front. And some of us say, my friend, if you want to go, you can go.
We'll be waiting for you.
We'll be waiting for you. And the chief army staff told us point blank that it was dangerous for us to do that. And that even within Maiduguri, where we are, that it could be as dangerous as anything, that any movement apart from where we are, or at any given point in time, because this is not a conventional war. This is something they can just strike any time, anywhere at any given point in time. The whole of Maiduguri and the whole of Borno State is completely militarized. Sort of people are under fear and the rest of them. So if that we now take down that to other parts like Yobe and the rest of them, then we have serious problem. Don't forget, although the police have come out to deny the fact that such happened, but just recently we also have the information that about 190 or 167 policemen that are just recently recruited to be deployed to took to their heels and refused to be deployed. But what we are saying is that we are going to have serious challenges, and the military, and this is where I need to commend the Nigerian Army and other military. It is not easy. These guys are doing so much to be able to get make sure that everywhere is safe. Most of them have lost their lives, and that is where at times when some of us, especially those of us in the media, tries to write or say certain things about, we don't know the level of sacrifice these guys are making. Sincerely, it is very devastating. But I hope, and don't forget, also we had such challenges pre-2015. We had such challenges. Yes. You remember vividly that it was given as one of the reasons why the president, I think it's president, the election was moved. By some weeks, by the Jonathan administration. But the chief of army staff said, yes, the Boko Haram or the insurgency has been curtailed to a large extent, but we still have challenges. And as some of us know, there are still some parts of Northeast that are still under their control. That nobody can dispute that. We still have so many of these, especially one of the traditional rulers recently said that 3 kilometers outside Maiduguri is not safe. That's an emir. Yes, in Borno State, I said that, and that is the truth. So we're having challenges, and I hope that this will be nipped in the bud before the election, or else I'm sure that INEC will not want to risk its personnel.
Nipped in the bud before the elections. We have like 50 days, like we said earlier. Is that possible?
No, he said he hopes.
So I am putting that question back at you. Hope. Is it possible?
Hope.
We're asking.
I don't just hope, I pray.
If so you now add prayer.
No, to be frank, it's frightening.
Yeah, it is.
Like he said, 2015, we had a similar situation. The military had to come up. Many Nigerians felt that it was some contrivance because PDP appeared to be losing and they needed to gain time. That the military must have done that for PDP. But they came out and said, look, we need 6 more weeks. Otherwise, you can't guarantee anything in the Northeast. No. If the military and the INEC chief has come out to now say that if it is the military that can tell us if we can conduct election in those places, because security will determine. Section 26 of the Electoral Act is categorical about that. Section 26, subsection 1, tells us that where there is insecurity and you cannot determine whether you'll be able to safely deploy materials or guarantee the safety of electoral officials, then elections may not hold in such places. But talking about the Northeast, at the moment we are talking mainly about Adamawa, about Yobe, and about Borno. But beyond the Northeast, let's not forget that there's a problem with Zamfara.
Yes.
Let's not forget that there's a problem with Zamfara. For some time, we've not had much problem, I say much, with herders-farmers clashes. But it's a benign thing. It's something that you are afraid could erupt at any point in time, anywhere. So there's problem of insecurity in many parts of the country. In 2015, when they went to the Council of State, the security chief said, look, we can't guarantee anything. And on the basis of that, Jega said, we must shift because there must be. So this time around again, we have to wait for what the military men will say. And that's a problem.
All right.
Because there is tension in the land at the moment, and there is mutual suspicion of everybody.
Your tension in the land, mutual suspicion. Is it going to be practicable rather, to conduct elections in these areas?
Practicable, yes. Possible, I think, is it not to practice? But it's the possibility that I think is the issue. I'm your senior when it comes to going to Maiduguri.
My friend.
I went to Maiduguri in the 90s, I think, with the NTA crew. And that was the Maiduguri of many years ago, when fuel scarcity was a norm. I saw kegs of petrol on the road, laid out like you are selling bolly on the road. Along the way, policemen, soldiers, everyone was walking around.
They buy.
And they buy.
They do.
That was many years ago. Fast forward now, it tells me only one thing. The major problem in that environment is poverty. The major problem in that environment is poverty. In the wake of the insurgency, stories and all of that, after the kidnap of the Chibok girls, there was a documentary done by a foreign organization, most certainly not Nigerian, and they were the only group of journalists allowed as far as talking to some of the people that are recruited by these guys. And they made it clear to the journalists who went that they offered them money. Have we been able to at least attempt to deal with that problem? Because unless we deal with the problem
of
poverty in the Northeast, we are non-starters. That's one. Two.
How do we deal with that? But go ahead.
Two. There is something in an English word called intelligence. In the military, it's beyond just having intelligence. It's a lot. I completely agree with Chris. The work that the military and paramilitary and civil security officers do in Nigeria, it's enormous. Only one example. Go under the Otedola Bridge at about 12 midnight, 1 a.m. You'll find policemen who have wives and children there.
Yes.
If you cannot think beyond the fact that it's a policeman just standing there, it's a last mile official, it's just one individual standing there, then you will condemn them anytime they go wrong. Ultimately, they are also human beings, fallible. To now be the one to go to the war front, you're not sure when you're not even sure whether you're going to come back. You're not sure if your family is going to be taken care of. You're not sure how, that your family is going to be taken care of. You're not sure what's happening with your wife now.
If you could just hold the thought. We have Jerry calling from London. Welcome to the show. Go ahead with your contribution, Jerry.
Hello, compliments of the season to everybody in the studio.
Same to you,
my brother.
I'm just going to say quickly about the ongoing situation in the Northeast. This needs to be holistically looked into, because the security people you're putting out to fight insurgency, their welfare is not being looked at. I mean, if they lose their life, for example, I've done a lot of investigation. Their family have been neglected. Plenty of time they've been assigned some money to their family, and quarter or half of the money goes to them. One, you need to look after them by giving them adequate and up-to-date, fighting equipment. You have to provide enough security for the security people. Let's say, for example, you have to provide power to them. I can say the Nazis, sometimes at 4 o'clock in the evening, everything is dark already. You can't expect people to put their life on the line to fight when they're not seeing people coming in front of them. You have to provide electricity. You have to let them know that if you lose your life or you lose one of your limbs, for example, you will be looked after. You'll not be neglected. And they have to be trained. Incentive-wise, people should look after this. And, all these things should be, put in place so that people will be motivated. Jerry. And that thing should be, to be ready to do what they need to do for the country moving forward. It's very important, because if we don't look after this thing now,
Thank you so much for your contribution, Jerry. All right, go ahead.
Well, I think, it kind of, dovetails into what we were talking about the other time, welfare for these guys. I think that's, pretty much summarizes it. So that's the second thing. The third thing that I'd like to talk about concerning the issue of the, insecurity in the Northeast, we shouldn't just look at it, well, the elections is very important, but we should look beyond the elections, before and beyond the elections. I've seen enough American and British movies in my life when it comes to the use of intelligentsia to know that what it really takes is for some intelligent eggheads to sit down and look at the issues beyond face level.
So are you saying we haven't done that and we are
I do not
seeming
feel
to
it.
have, okay.
Otherwise, for God's sake, how long should it take? We have seen, come on, how long did it take before this guy was taken out? Osama bin Laden, just to 10 years. And even the 10 years, someone had to really, really go in. I don't know if I don't have that courage. Maybe because I wasn't trained for it, okay? But there are some people who, that's what they do, that's their job. I do not believe that Nigeria is that small for a Boko Haram to corner us or box us out of a particular environment that we cannot get in. How many years going? I know just Chris would probably have, you know, a lot more to say about this because of things that he has seen on ground and all of that. But has the poverty issue been resolved? Been dealt with? Has it even been attempted? How many governors have we had between 1999 and now?
How would you expect them to have dealt with that issue?
How many governors have governed that state since 1999? 1, 2. How much has been spent? How many members of the House of Representatives do they have? How many houses of assembly people do they have? How many senators have passed through that place? How much money has been sunk into that environment? Who are the people asking the questions?
Yes. Let us even look at it from this point. Most often than not, it is easier for us to be able to lay blames, especially on the military, for their inefficiency. But are you aware that as of the 1st or 2nd of December this year, that the $1 billion that was supposed to release to the military was not released? Yes. I hope you're aware.
Oh, yes. It was announced.
It was announced that, in fact, what I had from part of some of those I spoke with while we were there is that even the young soldiers and rest of in the war front felt that their bosses have collected this money and shared it.
Yes.
That was the thought. Until the military now had to come out and say that, for goodness sake, this money has not been released to us.
Even the National Assembly,
everybody was saying it, that, oh, we'll release, we'll release. Some were also using it
for elections.
Some of the opposition parties have already started using it as a campaign to that, oh, after all, you say you release so money for and you know what that causes? That causes a lot of disaffection among the military, among the young people, and that is a problem. And talking about welfare, which I also want to touch, I've said it time and time again. You can acquire all the equipment you want in the world. In fact, Russia has just launched the fastest, what do I call it, missile, a ballistic missile in the world that cannot be traced by anybody. Even if we have that, and the morale of the soldiers who will run it on ground, you are not taking care of their welfare. There have been instances where we've seen video shots of most of our soldiers wounded and just tying something and leaves on their legs and the rest of them. Some of them died. They are not paid their family are not paid their gratuity and the rest of them. So those are the part of the challenges and problems we are having. I think we need to have a holistic view of what the problems so that we can be able to
quickly
get
before
this
we
done.
move on to the next topic, Mubalade. Now, if we're having all of this, how much impact would this have on the elections? Because certain persons will be disenfranchised.
Oh, I doubt if that can be prevented at this point in that corner of Nigeria. I doubt, because if he's talking of poverty, it's not something you do in 3-4 weeks. It's something that takes quite some time. Even the logistics itself will take some time before people begin to feel it. And even when it is done, initially people will say it's just for political reasons and all that. Now, as it were. So I doubt if it will. Certainly will have some effect, and some people are likely to be disenfranchised. There are areas, territories that are under the control of the Boko Haram guys now, that even our military cannot venture near. So I don't see how you would deploy ballot boxes and papers in those areas. The president was just talking of a possibility of a major operation in Zamfara. If you have a major operation in a state, you are not likely to be able to hold the election in that state. So there are problems on ground at the moment. How they will do it, maybe they are more superhuman. They may know much better than some of us here.
All right.
It will take superhuman efforts to be able to actually achieve that.
All right, Ayo, we need to quickly move to the next topic now.
Go on.
After the uproar that greeted the murder of Nigeria's former Chief of Defense Staff, Air Chief Marshal Alex Bade, on December the 18th, the police appears to have made a breakthrough that will put speculation surrounding his death to rest. Reports say the police arrested some suspects in connection with the murder. Some of them were tracked after they made a call to a wife of Bade's friend to demand for ransom. First Public Relations Officer Jima Mushud says the 2 key suspects and 3 others arrested are helping the police with investigation. Aya, is this a breakthrough in this case? And would it put the matter to rest?
No. I'm not in the military at all, but all I've heard is that they will, be paraded.
Parade them.
That's just telling us what we want.
As usual.
What we want to hear, so that we know that at least
Efforts have been made.
Efforts have been made. That's not what's important. The fear anyone has now is that a high-ranking officer, whether retired or in office, was killed in his environment, an environment that was hitherto under the insurgents, under the control of the insurgents at some point. Lost one between the insurgents and the federal government, and the man retires to his hometown and gets killed there. It raises a lot of questions. One of the issues that people raised on Twitter about this thing is, if such a high-ranking officer could be so easily killed, what happens to people like you and I? I think that's the first thing anyone would want to pay attention to, first of all. The second thing is, okay, so is it that this is unexpected in an environment that's that's been a security risk for so long? Is it unexpected? There are a lot of questions to be asked at this point. The investigation is being carried out by who? Civil police, military police, or army? There are so many questions. So if we're saying, and we have seen all kinds of things, you don't act anything in the movies if it's not likely to happen or could have happened. You could get any suspect just to let it look like, okay, some things have been done
It does happen.
by some people. Okay, let's just parade these ones. Let this one, what's the word you use, canon for that? Let's just use these ones to show people that we are doing something. Everybody loves the media. Everybody loves the TV. Everybody loves the camera. Everybody loves the microphone, the recorders that we use, be seen to be doing something. I need evidence that indeed these are the guys that really did it.
Well, Balade, do you share the same view with him?
Well, let me be a little more optimistic than he is. Okay. Let me say there is a possibility that they will impress us this time around. But of course, it falls in the usual line. That's what we parade people, and that's where it stops. We don't see anything beyond that. All the former assassinations we've seen in this country, there's none in which some people are not rounded up, were not paraded, and sometimes arraigned, but it stops there. Let's hope that there will be a change there. But there's something also, I know the Air Force came up to say we are not leaving this to the police alone. This is our problem. We will also investigate it. And I'm impressed with what the military, with what the army did with regards to General Akali. Let's hope that the Air Force will be able to replicate this and really get to the root of the matter and bring up the real culprits and get us something that would satisfy us that actually, because a number of people are raising issues that given the circumstances, Chief Marshal Bade is arraigned in court, he's been accused of certain things, his case is supposed to come up in a few weeks from now, and people, we love conspiracy theories. And we've been able to see a lot of...
Because he was said to be the only one that was killed in the vehicle, and the other person was kidnapped.
No,
Only
the
released two.
driver was
Also
also wounded.
He was
In fact, he was taken for dead until the hospital was able to do something about that. Yeah, but yes, it's others. Talking about the area too, and the fact that maybe we should have been able to envisage some of this, the Air Force also said, look, for an officer of his rank, he has the full complement of security backup at any point in time.
So where were they?
Well, that's a different thing. Because it does happen.
could have
When
decided to move
Bolage was killed, he had security. He was there. He was the Attorney General of the Federation. And all his security men and others, they went to eat conveniently at the point that the assassins came in.
That word, convenient.
Well, maybe I don't understand it. I just used it.
All right, let's get CKN's perspective to this matter.
Yes, across the globe, where human life matters, or let me use this, in advanced countries, you can go away with any crime in those parts of the world, be it in UK, be it in the US, be it in Europe, anywhere. But once you kill a policeman or a military person, even if you like, go underground, 10,000 feet, they'll find it out. Until we start doing that in Nigeria, things like this will continue to happen. Very key, very germane. Now, the question is whether I'm impressed. Personally, I will say, well, to some extent, am I impressed? I will not say I'm impressed or I'm not impressed. But let me. But
is this a breakthrough in the case?
No, we've had several victories. The only reason why I'll have some atom of optimism in this is that I was made to understand that the police RRT team is part of it. And if it's part of it, that means my good friend, Deputy Commissioner of Police, Abakari, is involved. If Abakari is involved, I'll believe it. But if Abakari is not involved, I won't. Why? It is the same in this country, just as you mentioned that one Frayo was paraded.
Yes, now.
Has been part of those that killed. In fact, somebody, I don't want to mention his name, a current son, was one of those that brought it. I said, this was, where is Frayo today? He was supposed to be part of those or who killed Bola Ige. There were some senators or a former senator and rest. There have been so many instances. And the problem is that once they are paraded, that is the end. We don't get to hear of anything again.
That's the problem.
It will be, and I'm putting this to the Air Force, it will be a shame, I'm looking at straight on the camera, it will be a shame to the Air Force of Nigeria if a whole general, not a one-star, not a two-star general, that's a four-star general, was killed and you people cannot find the killers. It will be a big shame on the Air Force of Nigeria. Akali, a brigadier general, was killed, and the army went as far as draining a whole pond to make sure that his killer, that gives the signal. It gives that if you ever try to kill any army general, wherever you are, you'll be found. The same thing I throw that to the Air Force. Make sure we get the right persons and the people that kill this guy, make sure that it's prosecuted.
But then it shouldn't stop there, like they have rightly said. Justice has to be done, not just done, but to be seen to be done.
Interestingly, it's not too far from the place of the topic that we talked about before now.
Yes.
It's about the same axis. It's a holistic thing. Yeah. It's a holistic thing. If people cannot feel safe where they are, there's a movie released by HBO, an American, movie organization.
I have been watching so many movies.
Stolen Daughters. That's the only movie so far about Boko Haram, those Chibok girls kidnapped. Yeah. I saw that thing and I asked my 18-year-old and 16-year-old, sit down and watch this thing. Because people need to know how risky or how safe they ought to be and what their own personal responsibility is when it comes to security. In that environment, please, let this next government take care as much as they can of the poverty problem.
All right, so, Mobolade, your final word. What will be seen as justice being done in this case?
Justice being done is for us to get the real killers of Air Chief Marshal Bade, and that they are successfully prosecuted and sentence passed on them.
Your final words, Sikian.
Well, once again, I put it back to the military. Make sure the killers of the chief, former defense chief, is apprehended or apprehended. This is the former chief of air staff as well, I believe.
Yes.
Yes.
Then the onus is on them to make sure that they get it. And chief of defense staff, too. We should get
Yes.
them.
All right. Gentlemen, thank you so much. This is how far we can go on the show today, but I must thank you once again
Thank you
for your
very much.
contributions so
Thank
far. Well, that's all on Journalist Hangout. Join us tomorrow for another episode of the program. You can also watch Journalist Hangout on other platforms showing on the screen and on YouTube at youtube.com/TVC News Nigeria. Our feedback channel is Journalist Hangout at tvcnews.tv. I'm Veronica Dani. Boy, bye for now. God bless Nigeria.